hope it's not too soon to make a video like this. But if I could do a part 2 for the video that has the most views on my channel, right here, right now, while I'm actually stranded at a truck stop with not enough fuel to get back on the road and complete my load, I'd like to do that. So it's been almost a year, guys. Coming up, I think maybe next week it'll be 1 year since I took a return to duty DOT drug screen, which put me back in service and made me eligible to get rehired with a carrier company as a truck driver, company truck driver. And so I'm real close to that 1 year mark. Now, if everything goes according to what I was led to believe by a substance abuse professional counselor, I should be done with this program within a couple of weeks. I still have the same job that I had. In fact, I'm still in the same truck that I made that video "So I Got Fired" in. To be honest with you guys, I'm kind of shocked, kind of surprised that I actually made it this far because of certain circumstances, and that just proves to me that, you know, I'm not really the one in control. I think there might be some kind of higher, greater power at work here. That's what I believe. And I think there always was. In fact, I think that's why so many people watched that initial video that I made, and it got so many people's attention, because I was upfront and honest about what happened. You got to think about it from my perspective. Here I am, a professional driver. I've had a steady employment in the industry for 7 years strong. Had some pretty good jobs, had some pretty horrible jobs at the same time. I would say that this job, out of all the truck driving jobs that I've had in the past 8 years, because it's actually been another year now, this one has to come up in the top 3 worst truck driving jobs I've ever had. And it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's flatbed and that it involves a lot of strenuous manual labor. It's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with circumstances with how this company operates. Now, I've talked a lot. I've probably said too many things about this company. It's a small company. It's been around for a little over 20 years. They have 3 trucks in operation, and they actually have 2 drivers, including myself, that are continuously on the road. Now, I took this job solely for the reason that it was my only option at the time. My only other option was to go get on a plane and fly up to Chicago for an orientation with another company that's not small, but it's not big at the same time. It's not a very precedented company in the industry. Like, I don't even remember what it was called, but they had probably about 30 or more trucks on the road, and they were specifically hiring SAP drivers. I did a lot of reviews on that particular company, and I got a lot of negative feedback from the reviews. It was dry van, so it was something that I was definitely familiar with. It was an over-the-road job. It was, you get to go home, you know, once or twice a month, that kind of deal. And guys, I have a 10-year-old son in the house, and I've got a 6-year-old daughter. I'm happily married, been married for over 11 years. I spent a considerable amount of time over the road at the beginning of my career, and I'm just not willing to go back there once again. I was going to do it if it was my only option, but thankfully I found this company, which was, ironically enough, actually based right out of the city that I live in Georgia. I tried to do some reviews on this company, and I just really couldn't find much. I filled out an application. It didn't take but maybe a day or two for the guy to get back with me and interview me on the phone, asked me a bunch of questions. I was straight up honest with them. Told him I failed a drug test and that I had taken some legal THC that I bought from a store one weekend when I was off duty, not doing my job. Now, I had been local for 2 years prior to the point that I failed the drug test. That company that I did work for is called GN Transportation, which actually got bought out by another company called CJ Logistics. And they fired me pretty much on the spot. It took them a day or two to get the message stating that I had failed a drug test. And guys, I just want to be honest with you. I didn't just fail a drug test. It was a little bit of a bigger deal than that. Now, I didn't tell you guys this in that first video that I made. All right, it was a little bit more of a bigger deal than just, having THC detected in my system. So for the people that suspected that I was kind of beating around the bush in that video and thinking that I wasn't being completely honest, well, you guys are right, and there's a reason why I wasn't being completely honest. It was because I was just getting back out on the road, and I had particular details that I needed to protect at that point. Now that I'm coming up on a year of having follow-up drug testing done on me, and knowing that I've passed every single test that they've given me. I've done at least a dozen of them, but probably more. I can't even count at this point. I still have all the little papers that they give you, like when you go to the lab or whatever. They send you paperwork saying that you have to immediately proceed to an address, a location, where you go pee in a cup. And when you're in the SAP program, you have to do it observed. So they actually watch you pee in a cup. Well, I've been doing that for a year, nearly, and knowing that I've passed every test, I think that's a pretty strong track record that I can back up what I'm about to tell you about what happened with me. So no, I didn't lie about what I did. I did legal THC, and I did fail a drug test, but I didn't fail the drug test because the THC was detected in my system. I failed a drug test because the same store that I bought the legal THC from was offering another product, and they suggested that I use it for the DOT random that I got, the test that I actually failed last July. They recommended that I buy this stuff and use it. And they said, well, this is what all the other drivers use when they get a random DOT. So it's called UPass. I bought it, cost about $30. First thing I did is I went to another store and I bought some over-the-counter drug tests because it had been about 5 days since I had taken the legal THC. I always did it over the weekend. I never did it when I was working, ever. I did it over the span of a couple months last summer. I didn't do it continuously, like I wasn't doing it every weekend. I bought like one container of these gummies, and I just took not even a whole one, because I had no tolerance for THC. I hadn't taken it. And like I said, after being a truck driver for 7 years, I had never failed a drug test before. And that's because, like I said in the video that I made, I haven't, smoked weed or anything like that since I was a teenager. So I never had to worry about failing a DOT drug test in the past, not up to this point, or not until up to this point. Anyway, I took an over-the-counter drug test and it showed up positive for THC. So that was very, very, very disheartening, and I knew that if I had gone to the lab and taken the random DOT drug test, I would have failed it. Now guys, keep in mind that at that point I had no idea what the SAP program was. Like I said, I never had to worry about failing a drug test because I never did anything prior to that 2-month point that I was taking the legal THC. And like I said, I wasn't taking very much. This container of the gummies that I bought, it had like, I don't know, 30 of the little gummies in it. And what I would do is I would come home on Friday and I would take one of them and I would split it into fourths, and I would just take like 1/4 of one Friday night and then maybe take another fourth of one the next day on Saturday. I was always off on the weekend, so I made sure that whenever I did it, a good 36 hours had passed from the last time I took it to when I had to go back to work. 36 hours, or more would have passed prior to the point of me getting back in the truck and going back to work. And keep in mind, I worked locally, so I went home every day and drove in the same area, did the same routes repeatedly. If you guys were wondering, my first videos that I made on this channel, which I started this channel last June, if you were wondering, was I actually taking the stuff during that time period? Yes, I was. And I was, like I said, I always took it on the weekend when I wasn't working. I never took it before I went to work or anything like that. I never had any on me when I was doing my job, because I'm not an idiot, and I had no intention and I had no desire to take THC and then try to drive a truck. It was never like that. It was, like I said in the video that I did on the SAP program, it was always something where, like, yeah, I just worked 60, 65 hours this week. I just want to go home and chill with my wife, and sometimes we might drink beer or something. Then other times I might take this stuff, and like I said, she didn't even know I had it. She didn't know I was taking it. And when I did take it and I was under the influence of it at home, she didn't know, because I didn't even take that much of it. I didn't need that much of it. In my own personal opinion, do I feel like I abused anything? Do I feel like I broke rules? No, not really. I mean, I respected the rules in my own way, and I don't feel like I ever put anybody in danger doing what I did, and it didn't bother me to do what I did. Like, I didn't feel bad about doing what I was doing. I was like, okay, this is just a way for me to relax and kind of unwind at the end of the week. And the whole time I'm thinking, man, I don't see how anybody could take something like this and then want to drive a truck, because it's already stressful enough and difficult enough to drive a truck. But it's, it helps me wind down, it helps me relax. It actually, it helped with pain in my body. I've actually got some previous injuries going on in my body, and I didn't want to get addicted to like painkillers or anything like that. And I knew that if I had gotten a prescription, which was absolutely possible. I have medical histories of having multiple surgeries, injections, stuff like that. So at any point, if I wanted to go to a pain management clinic and be prescribed pain medication, I could do it without any problem. I'm going to jump in real quick here and say this, because I remember one particular comment that I got from one particular person, and they're probably long gone by now, but They did say to me that I made it sound like I was a drug addict in that video that I made called So I Got Fired. And I just want to say that I think they're referring to the point of the video when I said I've never been strung out on heroin or anything like that. And then I said I haven't done anything like that since I've been in a truck. I did make that comment, and I guess if you don't know my backstory, then it would kind of make that sound like I've done heroin before and I've done other hard drugs before. But actually, that's not what I meant. And you know, the person that left the comment, from their perspective, I guess it would kind of sound like I was saying, well, I used to do heroin or something. But no, I've never done heroin in my entire life. But I have done things similar to heroin in the form of pain medication. And I just told you guys that I've had multiple surgeries, and I've had injections. I actually have 2 blown discs in my back, one between my shoulder blades and one down in my lumbar area of my spine. I've had injections. I also had to have knee surgeries. I had a meniscectomy, a total medial meniscectomy. So I don't have a medial meniscus in my knee anymore. They had to take it out because I tore it so bad that my joint got stuck like this for a couple of months. And I had to have multiple surgeries for that. I also had to have an ACL, which is an anterior cruciate ligament that goes through your knee. I had to have that replaced because it was torn. So guys, I'm no stranger to pain medication due to surgeries. And so when I said I haven't done heroin or anything like that, that's what I was referring to. Because yes, I did take pain medication after coming out of surgery and, you know, post-op recovery, all that. Yes, I'm no stranger to prescription painkillers. I never bought them off the street. I was prescribed them by doctors, and yes, they are very addictive, and I wouldn't recommend taking them unless you absolutely have to, in which case, you know, having I've actually had 4 knee surgeries on my right knee, and in a case like that, yeah, you're kind of in that boat where in order to get through the physical therapy and the painful recovery process, yes, you're going to be taking painkillers just to get through it because it's that bad. So when I made that statement, that's what I meant. And I've already been through that with the painkillers, and that's what I meant when I made that statement in the original video. And what I'm saying in this video is that I don't want to ever freaking touch those things again unless I have a major surgery or something where I'm like depending on something to kill pain that's that bad in my body. And that's what I mean by that. I had health insurance at the time, and I could have done that, but guess what? Had I done that, I wouldn't have been eligible to drive. I wouldn't have been eligible to do my job. So that's another reason why I kind of just decided to, you know, try this stuff. It's legal. I'm buying it from a store. It might not be considered legal on a federal level, but guess what? Every state that you go to, just about, except for a handful of them at this point, it's so legal that they've actually got advertisements for it on billboards on the interstate. So they're pretty laxed, and at this point they're not nonchalant about it at all. In fact, the last video that I made when I was in Missouri, they've got huge billboards on the interstate for marijuana dispensaries where you can go, and you might have to get some kind of permission slip from a doctor or something, but you can just go to a medical marijuana dispensary and get the stuff. Now, this stuff that I was taking, it wasn't marijuana, it was synthetic THC. So there's still a big difference. In a lot of the states that don't have dispensaries, they still allow merchants to legally sell this synthetic THC because it's it's not exactly the same thing as smoking weed. It's missing a lot of the components that natural THC has. And I'm not going to get into all the science about it or anything like that, but it will still show up on a DOT drug test or even an over-the-counter drug test as a positive for THC. Anyway, getting back to the UPass, I had a lot of people leave comments on that particular video saying, "Oh, you should have got the synthetic urine. You should have used that stuff. You'd still have your job right now." Answer to that is no, absolutely not. You will not have your job if you get a DOT drug test and they detect that the stuff that you put in the cup is not urine. They're gonna know that it's not urine. And this UPass stuff, it's not human urine, it's not animal urine, it's not anything like that. It's from what I understand, it's got some urethra, or what is that stuff called? I can't remember what it's called. Urea or some crap like that in it. I smelled the stuff. It smells kind of like, it smells almost like death. You know what I'm saying? It stinks. It stinks. Well, what a lot of people don't realize is that these DOT drug tests, the urine analysis test, they go off to labs where they actually test the stuff on several different levels. And so a couple weeks after I put that UPass stuff in my cup and turned it in, submitting it as my own urine, I got a phone call from the lab that tested it, and they're like, "Yeah, you failed. You failed. Big time. You failed. You just messed up. The sample that you submitted does not resemble human urine." That's what the woman told me before she hung up on me. And then I'm assuming that after she hung up on me, she actually called my employer to let them know that I failed a drug test. And she submitted it to the FMCSA. Next thing I know, I'm getting a phone call saying you're out of service. You can't drive. You have to enter yourself into the substance abuse professional program. And that's when that's when it goes into the whole thing of what I described. I'm not going to break it down in this video. I already did that. How much I had to pay to get started and all the stuff that my SAP counselor told me I had to do. So there you go, guys. That's what happened. And that might also have another reason for why I lost my job. Because like I said in that video, they really liked me. I always came to work. I was very reliable, very dependable. I had a very safe track record. As far as the safety hardware and software that the company used to monitor me, they used Samsara, and it's probably one of the cutting edge companies out there that has the best safety monitoring equipment for carrier companies. Their cameras are driver facing, and they use artificial intelligence to track eye movement, and they have a website. It's like a bank website where they take all the different files from the camera feed and they store it in a bank, an information bank on their website. And anything that goes outside of an algorithm that's been designed for safety, the AI picks it up, it records it, it saves it, and it sends an alert to my company for them to check it out and see what's going on. Well, with that particular company, if you ever had any red flags come up on their safety website where you had done something unsafe, and this includes taking your eyes off the road for over 2 seconds or anything like that, if your eyes are droopy, the camera, the AI that monitors the camera is going to know about it. So it's going to know that you're tired. It's going to send an alert, and it's going to be a problem. Okay. So this is the level of accountability that my company subjected me to. And 2 weeks before I failed that drug test, I actually got my quarterly safety bonus because I didn't have any issues. Okay, and there were periods where, I mean, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Samsara software or not, but it's not just sending information to your company about your performance, it's tracking your performance, and you have a database that you have access to that shows your safety score, your fuel economy score, all that stuff, and it will show you how good you're doing on the software. And there were months within my employment there where I have proof of it, where I came in first place out of like 80 drivers that worked for the entire company, not just in my region, but all over the country, all the drivers that worked for this carrier company. And I would come in first place because I took safety seriously. And it was important to me. And guys, like I said, with the whole situation with the UPass, looking back on that now, yes, I do. I think I regret that more than anything else. And like I said, when they realized that I had done that, I didn't just fail a drug test, I absolutely failed in that I tried to cover up the fact that I had been using this stuff. And that right there, that's one of the worst things that you could ever possibly do, I'm sure. It's a bigger deal than failing a drug test, because you're not just failing a drug test, you're trying to hide something and you're trying to deceive the FMCSA. So that right there, that got me in a lot of hot water. It actually caused me to panic when I got caught doing that. So if anybody out there right now, if you're a truck driver, if you're considering doing this legal THC, if you've already done it, just know that this synthetic urine crap, it's not going to help you in a DOT drug test. It's not going to help. You're going to end up being in a worse place than you could have been if you'd just been honest and said, hey, look, I've been taking legal THC. I haven't been doing it while I'm working. I've been doing it on my off time, and I'm going to fail this drug test, just so you know. So now that I said all this, and you guys know what the deal is, I told you the full story. I didn't lie to you to begin with. I just didn't tell you the whole truth, which is deceptive. Notice I didn't say that I'm a liar, because I never lied. I just held back some of the truth. And I even said in that video, some of the stuff I don't really feel extremely comfortable talking about on YouTube. And I didn't at the time, but now it's gotten so bad that I really don't care anymore. Who knows what? So why not just tell the full truth for what it is? All right? I mean, now at this point, everybody knows what I did. It was messed up. Does that mean that I should be penalized for the next 5 years because of what I did? The only real thing on my record that I have going against me, the rest of the information on my record as a truck driver is all positive. This is the only thing, the one negative thing that I did. And it's really the only thing that they've got on me. So with that comes the question of, what do people really expect from truck drivers? I don't think most people really understand what truck drivers go through. I really don't. If they did, they might show a little bit more appreciation. Now, there are some very insightful people out there that they've never done it themselves, they can kind of get an idea about how challenging it is to be a truck driver. But most people are not like that. For most people, we're just seen as an inconvenience and second-class citizens, and we're slow, we're rude, we stink. Many of us were angry quite a bit of the time, but we're human. No, really, that's really all it comes down to. We're human beings, and we're providing service for the economy. We're providing a service for society. And the thing is, most people don't actually see. They don't get to see all the work that we do. They might see us because we're in their way until they decide to go around us, even around in a double yellow zone, as people do. So, what makes a truck driver good? Safety, dependability, reliability, honesty. What else? Courtesy on the road. Okay, those are good things. I've heard it said that a good truck driver will make sure that any and every job gets done, no matter what. I think that's a pretty good definition of a good truck driver too. Like, despite whatever challenges or obstacles stand in the way, you get the job done. Well, the challenges and the obstacles that truck drivers face are coming from many sides, so they're multifaceted. Okay, first and foremost, we have the challenge of being compliant, and that means conforming to all the rules and the regulations by the federal government. All right, the next thing is performance, productivity. That comes second, right? Always comes second, never comes first. That's the way it should be. That's the way the freaking government has it set up, right? So that's the way it should be. So we've got pressure from the government enforcing us to do everything by the rules. We've also got pressure from our companies to remain productive and perform with the work that we actually do, to do it in an efficient way, to do it in a dependable way, so that it actually counts as productivity and doesn't get detrimental. All right, so those in themselves are two huge challenges. But now you want to throw the next challenge of the motoring public into that equation, and the pressure that we feel like we're under when we are doing our jobs and we are in your way. If you're in a four-wheeler, the pressure that we get from you guys for being on the road, the road rage, the frustration, the hatred, sometimes just sheer hatred that truck drivers get from the general motoring public just for being on the road, just for doing their job. And see, that right there, that one thing in itself is a huge area. It might seem like the pressure that we're under from the federal government is a big deal, and it is. Plus the pressure that we're under from our companies is a big deal. It also is. But the icing on the cake is the pressure that we get from the general motoring public. The people that we're dedicated to keeping safe out there. If we make mistakes, you guys are going to suffer the consequences of it. If we make wrong, bad choices, then it's going to affect the general motoring public. And so that's a lot of pressure. That's where most of that pressure comes from. And a good truck driver will respect that, and a good truck driver will be courteous. A good truck driver will be safe. A good truck driver will go out of their way to not be a burden or an inconvenience for anybody else on the road. That's how I was trained to do my job, and therefore that's how I know to do my job. Doing a job that way does not help when the pressure from the general motoring public intensifies, and especially when we do things safely. We are treated like dirt from the general motoring public. That's how we're treated oftentimes. Now, we're put under so much pressure to do things right and do things safely. However, the response that we get for doing things that way often comes in a negative, bad, messed up way from the motoring public around us. Okay? So we get frustration, we get hatred, we get sometimes being put into dangerous situations, trying to control the level of safety out there. Sometimes we get put into messed up situations. Sometimes we get antagonized. Sometimes we get threatened by the general motoring public. And all we're trying to do is our job. But to some people out there, doing our job is too much for them. Not for us, for them. And they will treat every situation like that. So that's where a lot of the frustration, that's kind of like the fuel for the fire of the frustration that a truck driver faces and handles on a daily basis. When the honest to God truth is, if we weren't out there doing our job, it's true, we wouldn't be on the road and we wouldn't be slowing you down in that way. We would be slowing you down in a much more intense way, because if there weren't trucks on the road, you wouldn't be on the road either. You wouldn't have anything in your house. You wouldn't have a house. You wouldn't have clothes to wear. You wouldn't have fuel in your car. Hell, you wouldn't even have a car. And people don't seem to remember these logical things. They're too focused on the inconvenience that trucks on the road are causing for them, but they're not realizing the inconvenience they would have if the trucks weren't on the freaking road to begin with. It's the cart before the horse kind of thing. So yes, we deal with that. And like I said, what makes a truck driver good is the ability to remain courteous even in situations like that. And that's why I do have a safe track record, is because despite the pressure and the frustration that comes along with that, I have decided and determined to remain safe even despite being put through stressful situations on the road. But bear in mind that this kind of performance and dedication will have detrimental effects on you over a span of time. Okay, so now what I have done is managed to attempt to highlight 3 of the multifaceted pressures that truck drivers get put under, but there are at least a couple more that I'd like to mention here, even though there are actually more pressures than that. And guys, I'm not saying that, there aren't other occupations out there that aren't just as stressful and won't have just as big of an effect on somebody in a negative way if they don't come up with some kind of form or way to manage it and cope with all of the stress, all the anxiety, and all the pressure. But there are at least 2 more that I would like to mention here that I didn't even mention originally. Okay, so on top of these 3 pressures, the 3 huge ones in the trucking occupation itself, there comes another pressure, and that is because of the size of the industry and the fact that there are so many trucks out there on the road. I've got a limited clock. Because of the regulations, I have to stop before I run out of time. Well, you might plan to have a place to stop to take your break at. But what you have to anticipate is the fact that there are so many trucks that may have also had the same plan to stop where you're planning to stop. Therefore, you're going to have issues finding a place to actually legally park without getting a parking ticket, a violation, getting a fine, or having your vehicle towed because you're out of time and you can't move it. Things like that. That there's a lot of anxiety and pressure that comes from that. I'm talking about just carrying out normal functions and actions that we have to do on a daily basis every time we work a shift. There's a lot of pressure that comes with, am I going to be able to find somewhere to park after working really hard for the past 14 hours? So that's another big frustration that comes along with it. Now, the other one that I would like to mention is the fact that you are in a confined space. Now, there are drivers out there that they're okay with this. They've grown accustomed to it. They might even favor it over being in a house. You know, they might like being isolated in a truck. Isolation is another huge aspect to all of these things that I'm talking about, and it will also have detrimental effects on you if you have issues with communication. There's really not a whole lot out there in comparison to the level of isolation that you're subjected to as a truck driver. You are utterly alone. Okay, you are out there on your own, and you're confined to an 8x10 box, living in it, dealing with all the frustrating challenges that come with that. Are you going to have the luxury of climate controls in the summertime when it's hot, in the wintertime when it's cold? Or are you going to have to suffer and, deal with the frustrating nature of what comes along with that? Yeah, because if it's really hot outside and you can't run your AC in your truck, guess what? You might die because it's literally going to get that hot inside of that cab. And some companies could care less. Some states you go to, they won't even let you idle your truck. It's illegal. You'll get fined for it. All right, so you got stuff like that. You've also got issues, like I said, this is kind of goes along with where am I going to park? There's nowhere for me to park. But there's also this other aspect of like, okay, I'm living in this vehicle and I'm driving around most of the time, but I still have human needs. Like I need to eat every day. I need personal hygiene. I need to be able to take showers. Well, the truth is, depending on where you are and what part of the country you're in, you're going to face some serious challenges and frustrations with even being able to take a shower sometimes. Go to the Northeast. If you don't believe me, go to the freaking Northeast and you'll see that truck stops are very limited up there, and it's kind of hard. Sometimes it's pretty hard to even find a place to stop and do something simple like taking a shower. So yeah, a lot of time, truck drivers, we might look pretty rough, and that's why. It's because we either don't have time to stop and take a shower, or we just don't have the means to do it. There is nowhere for us to stop and take a shower. And these are frustrating aspects that people don't even think about unless you have to deal with it on a daily basis. So if you have never considered these things because you've never been a truck driver, therefore you've never actually thought about how does all this work? How do truck drivers manage to get by doing what they do, living in a truck, working most of the time? You're thinking, well, shoot, if I was willing to sacrifice that much, alienate my family on a regular basis, and agree to isolate myself in a truck and work up to 70 hours a week and, deal with all the other frustrations that I've already mentioned. And on top of that, I invested thousands and thousands of dollars to get the training and certification required to become a truck driver. They better be paying me pretty well to do this. Well, guys, the truth is, especially since the inflation, no, we're not paid that well. So regardless of how frustrating and challenging the job is, I mean, we're talking about a serious level of skill that's required to do the job right and do it safely and do it according to the high standard. No, we don't get paid very well. When you try to put the factors on one side of the scale and the income on the other side of the scale, it's not balanced. In some cases it might be, but not really. Not for company drivers. And we're going to get into some more of this stuff before the end of this video, but just keep that in mind. As much of an impact as a job like this that's so challenging and so sacrificial, we're not getting that much in return for what we are giving. At the end of the day, when you look at all the frustrations, that's probably the one that just seals the deal for a lot of people. The people that have remained in the industry despite these multifaceted pressures causing stress and frustration in every way. The really good truck drivers out there are the ones that have stuck around and they haven't given up. The turnover rate right now, as far as I know, for truck drivers is like 91%. Most of those people that quit and walked away didn't even last a year. It's a proven fact. It's a statistic. Okay? But despite all of that, we've got drivers that have remained in the industry. I am included as one of those drivers. It is not an easy occupation to obtain and then therefore hold for a significant span of time. It will burn you out. It will wane on your sanity. It will cause psychological impact on you over a span of time. It will be detrimental to your mental health over a span of time. And the reason why, again, is because we are humans. But it's almost like the level of perfection that's demanded for truck drivers and what they expect us to uphold to a standard is not human at all. It's almost like an autonomous kind of thing. Like there's such a high standard of expectation on truck drivers. Therefore, we're never allowed to screw up. We're never allowed to have a bad week or a bad month. We're not allowed to tell the world how we really feel, because if we told the world how we really felt, well, we don't have the right to do that. We don't have the right, and even if we did do that, nobody would listen to us. You think anybody's listening to me right now? If you are, drop a comment down below. We become like filters at the bottom of society. And we're treated like that. So then therefore that's what we become. We become filters for all of the negative trash in society. We're like filters for it. We have to carry the weight of a good deal of that kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, we're demanded to perform perfectly. There's still perfection that's demanded from us. We're not allowed to make mistakes. We're not allowed to be human, in other words. We're not allowed to be human. If we are, then we get reprimanded for it. We must be corrected. We must be corrected. We're not allowed to make mistakes. We have to be perfect. And that's what they expect, because that's what the level of the standard comes to. If you really look at it at the end of the day, and you look at the stuff that we go through on the road while we're trying to do our jobs, that's really what is expected of us. And if we make mistakes, it's a huge deal. It's a huge freaking deal. And a lot of those mistakes that we make didn't come from us. It came as a reaction or a response. It came from the mechanism of messed up crap that somebody else caused. But because we are where we are, and because the standard is so high, we are expected to take the blunt of the impact from those mistakes, and we just have to deal with it. Now that like I said, that kind of pressure, handling that kind of stuff takes something beyond human nature. Because if it all came down to human nature, we would have truck drivers screwing up all the time. And we do have truck drivers screwing up all the time. But then people wonder why it happens or how it happens. And they make a big deal about it when it does happen. Well, I don't think anybody, including the FMCSA, will really understand what it's like unless they absolutely do it firsthand. And I'm talking about do it firsthand on a daily basis and put up with it every single freaking day without fail. Then they might realize. Okay, and then on top of that, there's the whole thing going on right now with the freight recession, and the fact that the industry overall is trying to cheapen the level of experience that is required to do the job, to be a professional, to do things the right way, to not operate off of our emotions. There's all this pressure that's demanded of things that are demanded from us. So, on top of all that stuff, we've got this freight recession. We've got big mega carriers cheapening the experience that so many drivers that have been in the industry for decades have gained. They're trying to cheapen that and say, no, anybody can be a truck driver. It's not that difficult. It's not that hard to do. Anybody can do it. We're gonna enable anybody to become a truck driver, and we're gonna utilize technology to open the door for just anybody to come in and start trying to do it. And that's basically what they've done. Technology is not the answer for everything. Okay? Just keep that in mind. And so I said all that because, I just told you guys what happened last year and what I did. Now, hopefully you have a better idea as to why I did it. Now, had I been honest with them, would it have made any difference as far as me getting and being able to keep my job? I don't think so. I don't think so, because I even asked, the HR department for the company. I was like, would it have really made any difference if I had just submitted a urine analysis with THC in it? And they couldn't really answer that question. They were just, they wouldn't talk to me. So, despite the fact that I had been monitored and screened on that kind of a level to the point where they're actually going beyond human limitation and they're using AI to monitor me, and I'm doing good. I've got good safety scores. Like I said, in some cases, I'm actually their top driver when it comes to safety and performance. That didn't make a bit of difference to them. Especially after getting this job and working here for the past year, I have regrets. And I deserved what happened to me. I totally deserved what happened to me. I'm not trying to dispute that at all. I think that, the choice that they made was fair. And I was absolutely ready. By the time I came back to work, I was absolutely ready to do whatever it took to get through this program and get back into a good job. Hoping that the job that I was taking, this particular job that I still have a year later, hoping that it was going to be a good job. I don't feel like I've had any issues or struggles staying substance free in this time period. I don't feel like I've done anything unsafe or questionable since I got this job. I don't think I ever had an addiction issue. Again, like I said in that previous video, I think that they need to make some kind of an exception, or they need to just they need to get rid of the stuff. They need to do something. They need to put a warning on it about, your federal drug test. You're going to fail it if you take this stuff. So don't take it. Don't touch it. At the same time, it's a double standard, because you can go home on your off-duty time. You can purchase alcohol legally. You can drink it at your home while you're not in a truck. You can be under the influence of alcohol. You can drink as much of it as you want, as long as you're not driving. Alcohol, a legal substance. And a lot of our government officials actually do that. There's actually, I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube that prove that a lot of government, law enforcement, state level, federal level, county level, there's a lot of people in our law system that are alcoholics. and it's been proven. Okay? So it is a double standard that they're going to allow the stuff to be sold in stores, but they're not going to let truck drivers get away with taking it on their off-duty time. Now, I've actually also done some more research about this legal THC that they're selling specifically. And that is, if they updated the federal DOT drug test and they changed it so that when it comes to detecting the presence of THC within a truck driver's body, they actually do have better methods of testing to determine how recently the substance was taken and ingested by changing the method of the test itself. Like they can do a salival test. And if they do a salival test, it's a little bit more sensitive in detecting how present the substance of THC is within somebody's body. If it's something that's been taken recently, if it's some, you know what I'm saying? So if they utilize the salival test, they would be able to tell how recent it's been since a driver ingested legal THC. If they really wanted to do that, they could do that. They wouldn't have any issues doing that. Are they going to do that? Probably not. So it will remain as a double standard. You've got a legal substance out there that, will remain in your system. If you take it over a long span of time, then it's going to remain in your system for a much longer span of time. But if you took it like I took it, once a week, twice a week, a couple times a month, but what I understand, it can stay in your system up to 5 days. And it all depends on body mass too. So, why am I talking about this stuff so openly? Because it's legal. It's sold legally in the store. Merchants have a license to sell the stuff. Manufacturers have a license to produce the stuff. And it's also legally advertised all over the place. And yes, I'm a truck driver and I'm talking about it because, people need to know. People need to be informed. I won't be touching it anymore. I want nothing to do with it. It makes me sick. It makes me sick even thinking about it. Even thinking about the fact that I did take it makes me physically ill. Just thinking about it. Because of the double standard. Okay, so the only other thing that I would have to say about all that is what I did was messed up. It was dirty. It was low. Now, the thing about it that is low down, and just wrong is trying to deceive. Okay? I think that's the cardinal sin that I committed. I don't necessarily think that the way I was using this legal substance was wrong or bad, but I think that, whenever I was screened and tested, I wasn't expecting it. And I really, really needed that job. That job, it was really helping. It was a job that I worked extremely hard to obtain. I worked hard for 7 years as a truck driver. My history with truck driving was rocky. It was very rocky. It was very difficult. Didn't make that much money in truck driving before I got that particular job. And so my decision to take legal THC while I had that job, I regret a lot now. As soon as I realized that I was going to have to go take a drug test, I panicked. My anxiety shot up. I was freaking out. I wasn't completely sure. That's when I went and got those over-the-counter tests from the store. But then after I took that test, I realized, I knew that I was utterly... And so that's when I decided to go and purchase the other stuff, the UPass stuff. And I was told by the merchant that I bought it from that it worked, didn't have to worry about anything. And so I believed them, and I purchased the stuff, and I used it. But I'm telling you guys right now, don't do that. Don't do that, because it's a waste of time, and you're just going to end up in a worse spot, a worse position than if you were just honest and you failed a drug test in a normal kind of way. So the FMCSA will categorize drug screen results in a few different ways. If you ever do fail a drug test, you will see this in your clearinghouse. But basically, there's different forms of failed drug tests. So the first form would be a positive result for whatever substance is in your system. The second would be a failed test in the form of a substitution, meaning that you used some other thing in place. So you substituted your own urine for this other stuff, whatever it may be. Okay, and then the third form of a failed drug test is a failure in them detecting an adulterated substance within your own urine. So that's when the people, they try to put bleach or something in their urine, and they can detect that too. In case you guys were wondering why I made that choice, I made that decision to try to use a substitution in order to pass a DOT drug screen, I've had some more time to think about this question, really think about it, and believe me, you guys wouldn't be the first to ask me this question. And as time has progressed throughout this past year, I've had a lot of time to think about why I did what I did. And I'm going to proceed this with the rest of the video, the original video, and kind of lay it out maybe in a different way. But I just wanted to add right here that the job I had, I knew was valuable. I knew that it was rare. It was like one of those gems, and it fit my life perfectly. I mean, it was like everything I wanted it to be. It was local. I got the weekend off. I got paid very well for the work that I did. I'm talking about the manual labor work that I did. It wasn't hard to do once you got the hang of it down, the routine. I was very fast at doing it. I was very efficient at doing it, and I made a lot of money unloading trailers, sorting out tobacco products, and that kind of stuff. You know, I got very proficient with it. I mastered it. And not even that much time. Guys, think about this. I was coming out of a food service job that was completely manual labor, picking up, carrying extremely heavy stuff, putting 400 pounds on a freaking hand truck to haul it in a customer's store and stock it on their shelves, that kind of stuff. That's what I was coming out of. When I got into this job, there were temp drivers complaining, saying that they didn't want to touch the freight, that they shouldn't have to touch the freight. I even heard one say, it's not in my contract to unload a trailer and touch the freight. Well, this guy, he was making $25 an hour plus overtime, and he was sitting there complaining. Not only that, many of our shifts were actually less than 8 hours. There were days when I started there as a temp, and I would work like 3 hours, and that was my whole shift. But because of the temp contract that I had, they would have to pay me for a full 8 hours, even though I only worked for 3. I mean, this was like a dream job. And in the beginning, I was blown away. I was like in another atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was just like, I was soaring because it felt so good to finally get a job that good. But over the span of time and over all the effort and over certain circumstances involved with my time being there and decisions that they made as my employer for me, things started to shift a little bit. So when I first started working there, I didn't even know how much their actual company drivers made to work there. I had no idea they made so much money. As a temp, I didn't really make that much money, but I feel like they were being extremely generous for compensating me for the work that I was actually doing. After I got hired on, it just blew my mind. I mean, this company, they paid 80 cents per mile to their local drivers, and they also paid us for each stop. They paid us detention pay, and they paid us to unload cases off of trailers. They paid us well. We're talking about big tobacco. We're talking about that industry that is extremely corrupt, but also extremely wealthy. So they paid us well as truck drivers. The commodity that we were hauling was high value. If we had a trailer full of freaking cigarettes, that the value of that trailer was over $2 million. And so they paid us well to haul it. They paid us well to unload it and sort it out. It was a good job. Did not require that much strenuous manual labor, and it paid extremely well. Had I not lost that job, had I stayed there, I could have, retired off of that income. And I'm talking about income not quite as good as food service, because I did food service too before that. Like I said, when I did food service, I was killing myself physically. I was killing myself, but I was also banking. When I did food service, I told you guys that with this job, I would make between $1,500 and $2,000 in 5 days. Well, with the food service job that I had, because of all the overtime hours I was getting, I was making well over $2,000 per every 5 days. So it wasn't as much, but the work was so much easier that it was just like, whoa, like, this is awesome. I can't believe I got this job. And believe me, like I said, I had that attitude. I had that, just blown away, because I've had people leave me messages like, how could you even possibly conceive of putting a job like that in jeopardy? And believe me, guys, I never would have reacted or responded or done what I did in the beginning. But after 2 years of enduring some of the stuff that I went through with that company, including the AI monitoring me all the time, yeah, it led me, the pressure, it kind of led me up to that point to where I was like frustrated, not even necessarily frustrated just because of all the stress that the job induced on me, but also frustrated in the fact that I knew that was as good as it was ever actually going to get for me, that it wasn't going to get any better than that. And I knew how valuable the job was, and believe it or not, that actually causes frustration in me, because I was at the same point. I found myself in the same state of frustration that I was in, prior to having this job and having all the other crappy jobs that I had to work and endure to get that job. I was in the same place of frustration after being there for 2 years and realizing how it was going. And despite making that kind of money, I was in the same state of mind. So guys, I guess what I'm getting at is that I'm never really going to be satisfied as a truck driver. Maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Maybe there's something else out there for me that I can actually appreciate doing that's not truck driving. Number one, it was because my job was extremely valuable to me, and I knew that I would probably not be able to keep my job had I failed a drug test. Number two, I didn't even know that the SAP program existed. I didn't even know what it was. I just thought that, you're a truck driver, you fail a drug test, you're out. That's it. So I was desperate in the moment, had a limited amount of time to show up to this lab to pee in a cup for them. And I panicked. And I was trying to solve an issue in a completely wrong kind of way. But it was the consequence of the choice that I made to begin with. Because apparently, like I said, despite the fact that so many of our government officials have their own issues with illegal substances, it's too much for a truck driver to take a legal product over the weekend when they're off duty. That's not going to fly with our government. It's not going to fly. So I wouldn't suggest doing it. Okay, number 3, and the final reason why I decided to do that is because the store that I purchased the legal THC and the U-Pass from told me that drivers used that product to pass DOT drug screens and that it would absolutely work. So I believed them. I was naive enough to believe them. Now for them, they made a sale by convincing me to buy a product that I felt like I had no other choice but to buy in the moment. And believe me guys, the pressure that I was under at that point, it had been, you know how I told you guys that when you don't take it very much, it can be in your system for up to 5 days. Well, this had been like 4 days prior to the point that I had taken it. So it was like a Wednesday. I took it the previous Saturday and it was now Wednesday and they were sending me to go to take this drug test. So had it been 24 hours later, would it have been detected in my system? I don't know. All I know is that I wore myself ragged and I wore myself down mentally, emotionally, psychologically, just overthinking this stuff and overanalyzing it repeatedly after it all happened. And believe me, I felt pressured. 2 weeks went by after I submitted the test. Didn't hear anything, so I was thinking, okay, I'm good. Surely they've got the results by now. I think I'm good. Surely I passed it. I would have heard something by now. Well, it took 2 weeks for them to give me that, to call me. I got that phone call about 2 weeks after I submitted the drug test. And so I know I'm going to get some ridicule for that. And I know that I probably disappointed a lot of people that did have no, I even got comments telling me that, well, at least you were honest with it. You didn't try to lie. You didn't, but I did. Okay, I did. I tried to deceive them. And it's all my fault. It is. And I've been carrying that for the past year. And I've been dealing with the weighty consequences of that for the past year. So that might lead us to the next thing that you might be wondering, and that is, why the hell did you take the stuff to begin with? What led you to that decision? You had a good job. You had a higher tier job in the industry. You had it really good. I knew that then because, like I said, I had several jobs prior to that were horrible jobs that did not pay well. I was not treated fairly. And that, like I said, that job wasn't perfect. It was far from perfect, but it was the best job I've ever had as a truck driver. And guys, maybe that had something to do with the reason why I did it. Thinking, I know I'm in a really good place right now. I know I have it really good. I'm making good money to do what I do. And realizing that after all my hard work, this is what I've gained. This is what I've earned. Despite having such a good job, making so much money, being able to go home every night, getting the weekends off, getting holiday pay and PTO and vacation time and crappy health insurance, I was still disappointed. The whole endeavor just felt altogether unfulfilling. Despite being in such a good place, especially compared to where I am now, I was dealing with depression. I was dealing with pressure. I was doing very well financially, but at the same time, I wasn't doing very well in the mental health department, which led me to make the choice to take the stuff to begin with. I wasn't doing very, very good. There was a part of me that was like, okay, you just worked your ass off for the past 7 years, and this is what you earned. And this is all you've earned. And this is as good as it's ever going to get. And I believed that. It was awesome in the beginning, but after so long, I just kind of got jaded with it. And I got in a position where I felt like, I can't really do any better than this. I can't really grow. I don't really want to do anything more challenging than this. I don't, like, for instance, where do I go from here? I'm in the best spot I've ever been in over the span of my entire career. How do I take a step forward to make this even better? How do I grow from here? I feel like I've plateaued. I don't feel like it can really get any better than this. And yes, I probably, if I would have waited it out and saved some money, I know I probably could have eventually got into owner-operator territory. Or I could have, like I was forced to do, got into flatbedding, got into heavy haul, that kind of stuff. I could have looked into car carrying and tried something new that offered, new and fresh challenges. And I probably should have made a choice to do something like that instead of the choice that I made. But there always has been a particular part of me that I appreciate the trucking industry for what it is. After all my hard work, putting it all in over the span of, getting kind of close to a decade now since I started doing it, I appreciate it for what it is, but deep down at the end of the day, I don't really like it that much. I don't like being a truck driver that much to begin with. I know how to do it. I'm pretty decent at it. I'm decent enough to come in number one for safety and performance out of 80 drivers at a company. I'm good enough to do stuff like that. I'm good enough to hold down a job doing food service, as challenging as all that stuff was, to the point that, I was a temp whenever I was doing it, and the company was begging me. My last day when I walked out of their freaking warehouse, they were on their knees practically begging me to submit an application so that they could hire me on. But I just decided that I didn't want to do it. Not necessarily because the work was so hard, but because that particular company leased equipment from Penske that was really bad equipment, and it made doing a job that was already difficult 10 times more difficult because all the equipment was worn out. So, just for the fact that I have the determination to get good enough at something to achieve and actually make progress and make milestones and become dependable and be taken seriously, like this particular job. Like I said, drove a truck for 7 years, never did flatbed, never thought about doing flatbed, never considered it, never wanted to do flatbed. At that point, I was being forced to learn how to do it. And it's not easy. Especially in the beginning, it's not easy to do it. It's not easy to learn how to do it or figure out how everything works or figure out a method that's considered safe and acceptable, especially when you don't have training. Now, you would think that an industry like this, that where the driver's required to secure things to their trailer so that it doesn't fall off while they're driving down the highway and kill somebody, the industry itself would be a little bit more concerned with providing adequate training to a new driver that has no experience doing it. And maybe they do. Maybe some companies do. Well, this particular company didn't take it that seriously and didn't think it was that big of a deal. So they didn't provide that training for me. So what did I have to do? I had to overlook that important point and make it work anyway. Find out whatever way, do whatever I possibly could to make something like this work, something that I have no experience doing. It was a lot like that when I did do food service. I got training for a couple days, and they put me on the road by myself. I had a trailer full of stuff that I was expected to unload by hand and deliver to locations, sketchy locations and small parking lot. And I have some of this on video. I'm actually going to make a video. I'm going to submit a video from my old channel just showing you guys some of the scenarios where I had to deliver stuff as a food service driver and show you how technical and challenging it can actually get. And after doing food service and doing flatbed, I would say that absolutely, in comparison, I think food service is way more fulfilling and entertaining, even though in some cases it's harder to do than flatbed. It's more fulfilling than flatbed, and you know, when you're working for a company like I am right now, it pays a hell of a lot more than flatbed pays. But you are working harder. But that's beside the point. My point is, when I'm saying that I'm unsatisfied as a truck driver, in fact, a truck driver that's actually made progress in the industry, made good money in the industry, and got to a higher level of experience, I'm still not satisfied, guys. And I don't feel like making a choice to become an owner-operator is going to make me feel any more fulfilled or satisfied. Because that just adds a whole bunch of other stress to the equation that I don't really want to deal with. In fact, having this job, I've been subjected to a lot of the stress that owner-operators are subjected to. And I will have to say that I don't really want to have anything to do with that. I don't want to be put under those kind of pressures. I don't want to be subjected to, you know, worrying whether or not I'm going to have the ability to fix something on my truck if I break down, or worrying if I'm going to max a credit card out because I need fuel and not be able to pay it. And guys, I know that this is a really horrible time to be a truck driver right now in general. We're in a freight recession. It's crowded out here in the industry. There's too many carriers out there. There's too many drivers. Despite what the 6 o'clock news is telling you when they're saying, oh, we're 60,000 drivers short, we're 80,000 drivers short. They're full of crap. We're not short at all. We're crowded right now. And there is a lack in demand in the market, and it's affecting our income. It's affecting all of our income. It doesn't matter if you work for a giant carrier company or if you have a company with one truck on the road. The state that the freight market's in right now is affecting everybody. So this is a horrible time to be a truck driver. So guys, I really don't know what the answer is. I mean, I've thought about it. Yes, if I could go back and change the decision that I made to take legal THC as a truck driver, I would. I never would have touched it. I never would have put myself or my family in that kind of jeopardy of losing my job. Again, I don't think or feel like I've put anybody in jeopardy as far as safety. And the software, like I said, again, the software that my previous company used to monitor me proves that despite the fact that I was taking legal THC when I was off duty, their safety monitoring software didn't seem to think that I was, you know, causing any kind of unsafe situations on the road for anybody. That's why I got my safety bonus. Now, as far as, you know, what this experience has been like in the past year working for this small company, I feel like it's been detrimental on my mental health to an even greater degree, because the company that I work for, the owner of the company, he runs a business in what I feel like is a very, very questionable way because of the condition of his company, his limited access to the market to begin with, on top of the whole freight recession, his limited ability to make income in any form, to grow his business in any way. Since I've gotten here, and we have faced this recession in the past year, and things have gone downhill. I don't feel like his company has grown, it's made any progress. If anything, it's deteriorated to a certain degree. And that's putting me in a really messed up spot, a really messed up situation, because anything that affects him is going to directly affect me. So this guy, he's trying to survive out here in the market right now. He's trying to keep his head above the water, you know what I'm saying? He's trying to survive, and that's affecting me. But guys, I'm absolutely subjected to it without having any options. I've had to hit all the speed bumps and deal with everything that challenges his company, and he's making desperate decisions. He's doing desperate things to continue to have income, and that's potentially forcing me into these positions, these circumstances of making decisions that I feel like are questionable. That's why I published a video of me driving a truck, forcing it to run, keeping it on the road when it's actually breaking down. That's why stuff like that happened, is because he's trying to keep his head above the water, and I'm just trying to stay employed. And he knows that, and I know that, and he knows that I know that, and he knows that I know that he knows that. You know what I'm saying? It's like that. Where we're both in big ordeals, we're both in over our heads, and we're both trying to keep it going. But the one difference is, if I make a choice, it might not affect him, but if he makes a choice, it's absolutely going to affect me. And so what has that meant for me? Like I said, it's put me into bad circumstances, bad positions, where I feel like I've been forced at a crossroad to either make good decisions or make bad decisions, terrible decisions. I've decided to be firm in making the right decision. I'm never going to make the choice to choose productivity over safety. I'm never going to put myself in another circumstance where I'm putting anything on the line with my CDL. I'm never doing that ever again. It's not worth it. He might not like the decision that I'm making to make the right choice, but he has to respect it. The FMCSA is always going to say do it safely, despite whatever it may cost productivity. You're going to do it safe, and you're going to do it the right way every single time. That's the way that I was trained, and that's the way that I'm going to do things, with the exception of a stupid choice that I made a year ago. The last thing I'll say is that I'm coming up at that point once again where I feel like I've proven myself. I was put under a trial. I was put under a testing. It was actually this past year, as far as my job goes, as far as the income that I've made, which is actually about half of the amount that I used to make on my last job. My income was literally split in half, and I've had to live with it. I've had to survive it under much, much, much harsher conditions than I've ever been in as a truck driver. Right now, guys, I'm sitting at a truck stop because I have no way to get fuel to finish out my load. The fuel card that I used got maxed out last night because we had to buy a replacement drive tire because I had a blowout. And so that money that we had to spend on that tire was supposed to go into my fuel tank today. But now there's the card's maxed out, so I'm stuck at a truck stop. That's why I am making a video of me talking for over an hour, because I haven't got anything better to do. I feel like I've handled this in a very respectable way. I did lose it a couple times. I did go off the deep end. I did have an extreme amount of anxiety. At this point, I've gotten used to being in an unstable position. At this point, I have gotten used to just saying, okay, I've been in this position for a prolonged period of time. Many questionable, unstable things have happened to me since I got this job. But it's happened to a degree that at this point I'm just used to it. Guys, I'm being subjected to many things that owner-operators are being subjected to. The only difference is I'm not being paid like an owner-operator. I'm being paid as a company driver with a really crappy job. And that's what this is. Yet I'm being put into situations that are similar to the situations that owner-operators are put in on a regular basis. And it's hard. It's very hard. On top of all the other challenge that comes with the job. It's very difficult. But guys, I have refused to give up. As hard as it has gotten, I've refused to give up. And I'm at this point now where I'm thinking, okay, if my SAP counselor was telling me the truth, I'm coming up to that point where this should be over within a couple of weeks. I mean, it's coming. It's really, I made it, you guys. I made it. If I can get through this, you know, and make it as far as I've made it, I'm still in one piece. Nothing terrible happened. You know, there were no tragedies. I still have my sanity at the end of this. What's going to happen from here out? What's going to happen from here out? And guys, when it comes to being a truck driver and all the challenges that average truck drivers deal with, the labor involved with the job, the challenge associated with getting loads delivered on time, not having a whole lot of time in between your loads, feeling like you're constantly going, you're never able to stop and catch your breath. All those challenging aspects that average truck drivers have to deal with on a regular basis. Yes, I've dealt with those things, but I've also dealt with all this other stuff. I've also dealt with, is my truck going to break down? And dealing with that on a consistent basis. Having to deal with things like, okay, I don't have the resources that I need to pick this load up. What am I going to do about it? Dealing with stuff like that. Having to deal with issues like I don't have the tools that I need to pick this load up or deliver this load. I don't have what average truck drivers are provided by their companies. I don't have a truck GPS. I don't have any of this stuff. But I'm having to make it work. I'm having to go to the extra challenge to make it work. And I have. By all means, I have. If I still had AI monitoring me in my driving, I've driven the exact same way this year that I would have driven if I had a forward-facing radar on my truck. That's why I haven't gotten any tickets in the past year. There is nothing on this truck monitoring me. Nothing. There's nothing. If I were to run a red light or slam on my brakes so I didn't run a red light, there would be nothing to notify my company that I just did something unsafe. If I were to tailgate somebody on the interstate, there was nothing on my truck that will notify my company that I was doing that. But this whole time I've been driving like I'm being monitored. This whole time I've done nothing questionable. This whole time I've stayed true to the demand of safe driving and all that stuff. I've stayed completely true to it. I don't hold my phone while I'm driving. I don't do any of that crap. At the same time, I'm also getting drug screened on a regular basis. I won't call it regular. It's actually an unknown basis. It's consistent, but it's unknown. Like, I could get drug tested at any point. And I've passed every single one of them that they've given me over the past year. So what does that say? That says to me that I've gone above and beyond the standard of the industry and what's expected for average truck drivers. And I've performed. And I have come through. But whenever I get out of the SAP program, our company's going to see it that way. Are they going to see it like that? Or are they going to see it like, oh, you failed a drug test? Are they going to realize the challenge that I've faced? Even though I failed a drug test, the challenge that I've faced in the past year, and yet remained faithful to the rules, the regulations, haven't been reprimanded, haven't been punished, haven't been fined, haven't had any complaints about me whatsoever. I've just done my job and fulfilled every expectation and beyond in the past year. Are they going to realize that? Are they going to realize that I've worked 3 times harder in the past year to make something that is against all the odds work? Because that's something about the SAP program that people need to realize. When you fail a drug test, in order to remain as a truck driver, you have to go against the grain of the industry. Everything is trying to push you out of it. Everything is trying to get rid of you without actually getting rid of you. Because it's not up to the companies, it's not up to the industry, it's up to the FMCSA. And the FMCSA isn't going to outright ban you from being a truck driver if you fail a drug test. They're going to say, nope, if you want it to work from this point, you're going to have to pick yourself up and prove to us that you have what it takes, that you can get back on your feet, and that you can make this work from here out. Despite the fact that the entire freaking industry is going to be pushing against you from this point onward. That's about how it's been like. Guys, since I got this job, I have applied for one other job, and I waited a good 10 months to do it. So last month I applied for a job at another company because at that point I was at wit's end. I was about to either quit and give up on all of it or try to get another job with another company. So I applied. I'm not going to tell you what the company is, okay? But they have a history of being known to hire drivers in the SAP program. So I filled out the application. I gave them my history. I gave them my good history as a truck driver. I gave them my solid employment as a truck driver. All the good, positive things on my record. And I gave them the record of me failing that drug test. And what did they do? They denied me within 5 minutes. It took 5 minutes for them to take one look at it and see that I failed a drug test and absolutely refuse to move forward with any kind of interview or anything else like that. They just weren't interested as soon as they saw that. And this company's known for hiring drivers in the SAP program, and they still refused me. Despite all my experience and despite my clean driving record. So what does that mean for me? Does that mean that after I am out of the SAP program, I'm going to be in the same position that I was in last year? Does that mean I'm going to have to stay here with this company for an indefinite amount of time? If it does mean that, it's not going to have anything to do with the fact that I lack to perform and get what needed to be done, and prove myself. It's not going to be for any of those reasons. The only reason why it may be for is simply just because the freaking market sucks right now. Absolutely sucks. So I'm coming out of the SAP program just as the market is nosediving. And that's not good. It's not good for me. A mega carrier, even a mega carrier that has a reputation for hiring SAP drivers, is not going to give me a job, despite having all of this experience. I've actually even heard it said to experienced drivers that the reason why this big company won't give you a job is actually because you're overqualified. Because they don't want to hire drivers with experience. They want to hire new drivers with no experience. That way they can pay them at a minimum level. They can bring them in with a starter income. And that way they're doing the work, they're getting the work done in the automatic transmission trucks. They're doing it and they're getting a beginner's income off of it. And if the big companies keep hiring the new drivers fresh out of school that aren't going to last for more than a year, the news is going to keep saying that the turnover rate for truck drivers are high. we're short 80,000 truck drivers and this and that, when we're actually not. It's just that the industry is so bad nobody can stand it for more than a year. And then you got the people like me that decided that despite how bad it gets, I'm going to stay no matter what, to the point that we get so freaking burned out, we get so disappointed with all of it that we end up taking legal THC on the freaking weekend and disqualifying ourselves from continuing to do the job. I mean, if there are drivers out there that are quitting right now because the market's so bad and they just made the choice that it's not worth it, well, how do you think that makes me feel? With extremely limited options in a really bad market, how do you think that makes me feel? Knowing that I've just put forth all this effort for the past year. I'm going to leave you guys with that. I've given you several things to think about and consider. Please leave your comments. If you appreciate my honesty, like the video by all means. Guys, when you comment on my video, I think it's actually more impactful when you comment on the video and you leave your insight, you leave your opinions, and you communicate with me. I think that makes a huge impact for the algorithm on YouTube. That way the video will get out there, people will hear what I have to say, and they'll be informed, because I feel like I've said some pretty important things in this video. So if you guys will, please leave a comment. Even if you want to cuss me out, even if you want to tell me how big of a piece of garbage I am for doing what I did, at least you're helping the algorithm by doing that. So don't hold back. Okay, I'm ready for it. I'll take it. I've taken a lot of crap in the past year. I think I can take a little bit of trash talking on top of that. On the other hand, if you guys want to leave encouraging things and actually show some love, that will be even more appreciated by me. But with that being said, I appreciate you watching this long, drawn out talking video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Stay tuned. I don't really know what's coming next, but I will get back with you eventually. All right, see you later.